Hello, everyone. We will get started in a few minutes, just letting folks get into the webinar. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Christy Jones. I work at National Wildlife Federation. I am the Senior Manager of our higher education programs, and I also manage our Campus Race to Zero Waste program, formerly known as Recyclemania. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Using Technology to Conduct Waste Audits, Best Practices During and Post-COVID. Today's webinar will be recorded, and I will have that posted online probably tomorrow or early next week for if you want to take a look at it again, listen in, and I will post that on the website and share it out through email so you can take a look at that. We will have a question and answer session towards the end of the webinar after the presentation. However, if you have questions that pop up that you really want to ask during the presentation, please feel free to enter those into the chat or the Q&A box. I will be monitoring both of those. Today's presentation will be led by Alex Arnett. Alex is the manager of the Smart City Customer Success at Rubicon. Rubicon is a partner of the Campus Race to Zero Waste program. They are a technology company born in the waste and recycling industry, and they're committed to environmental innovation. So we're very happy for them to join us today and lead this presentation and really value all of their support over the last year with the program. So I will stop there and I will go ahead and pass it over to you, Alex.
All right, thank you very much, Christy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Arnett. As Christy said, I am a customer success manager at Rubicon. My primary focus is in the smart cities space. I work with a number of our city partners to help improve their waste and recycling collection operations. I do also work at Rubicon with a product that we call Rubicon View, which is a waste audit technology tool to empower communities and organizations to assess the size and the health of their recycling streams. And we're going to talk about a lot of that today, specifically in the context of our post-COVID, mid-COVID world. So I'll go ahead and get into it. A little bit about Rubicon. We were founded in 2008 with the stated mission to end waste in all its forms. So that is, waste material going to landfills. It also means wasted money, wasted time, wasted effort. And we see our technology platform as the convergence of all of those goals. When I work with a city or an organization, I'm hoping to divert as much material as possible from their landfill, but also improve the efficiency of their operations, make their employees more effective in their role, all good things. So we generally provide a software as a service type model. This is something you're probably very familiar with now, that you pay however much per month for your software instead of buying it outright. We use our technology to power businesses and governments all around the world. You can see some of our stats there at the bottom, the stuff we like to brag about. Over 4.9 million unique service locations, over 55 cities that I've had the pleasure to work with, over 22 countries that we're in now. One thing that I do want to highlight here from this slide, if you see over on the right-hand side where it says Certified B Corporation, if you're not familiar with the B Corp designation, it's a benefit corporation, and that's actually the way that the Rubicon Corporation is structured. The way we're incorporated, we incorporate the ESG model, the environment, society, and governance models. You may also hear it referred to as a triple bottom line it's something that Rubicon's very proud of, that we're not just in this to make money. We're working to make the world a better place every day. And it certainly makes me proud to go to work. So jumping into waste audit specifically, I want to cover a little bit what is an audit? What are we talking about when we're talking about auditing a waste or recycling stream? It's kind of an umbrella term. It could refer to any number of things. One common conception of it is a waste sort, or some people call it a dumpster dive, where you maybe pull a few representative containers, receptacles in your stream, dump out all the contents, and do a very thorough sort of everything that's in that container. And, you know, it's very labor intensive, time intensive. You can't do it every day, but it's a really great way to get a snapshot of what's in your waste stream. You might do an audit of your participation or set out rate. You know, this is especially relevant in a municipal residential setting where you're trying to figure out, you know, how many people put their recycling cart out to the curb. You might do an assessment of your stream at a point of disposal. This could be as simple as monitoring the truck as it dumps at a transfer station or a MRF. Just say, you know, what's in that truck. MRFs frequently do this type of auditing on a regular basis. They're monitoring the contamination level of what's being dumped in their facilities, making sure it doesn't cross, you know, a specific rejection threshold. You might also consider an audit being monitoring and tracking your waste streams for a specific period, you know, tracking weights and measurements and assessing, you know, what is my recycling rate? What's the percentage of material that's being recycled versus sent to a landfill? Or another context for an audit would be a spot check of a waste stream at the point of collection. So your organization may have someone whose job it is to once in a while poke their head into a container, you know, whether that's a roll-off container, an 8-yard dumpster, a 96-gallon cart, and just say, what's in here? Is this what's supposed to be in here? Am I seeing contaminants in my recycling? Am I finding plastic in my food waste stream? That kind of thing. And that could be informal process. It could be, you know, part of the job of the person who's collecting that container to do a quick assessment of it, or it could be a more formal process where you're making a project out of it and really measuring and tracking that data. So if you're managing any waste streams, why would you want to do an audit? The obvious one in this context is you might be participating in the Recyclemania contest, where you're competing against your fellow schools and seeing how your recycling participation stacks up. You could be assessing the contamination in your recycling stream, whether you're trying to target a specific contaminant, or maybe you're feeling pressure from your MRF or your local recycling facility to improve the quality of the material coming in. You know, this is a challenge that recycling operations are facing nationwide, where the processors of that recyclable material are able to handle less and less contaminants as countries like China crack down on contamination in the recycling streams. So this is becoming more and more relevant for anyone that manages any kind of recycling program to make sure that contamination is low and compliance is high. You know, in this kind of context, it's always important to point out that what gets measured gets managed. It's really difficult to make any kind of change to your recycling system if you don't know what's going on with it. In a context like a college or university, if you're looking to put out educational materials, an educational email to all students or staff, or maybe new signage for your recycling receptacles, it's difficult to get that right if you don't already have a sense of what's in your recycling stream and how it needs to change. Another great purpose behind an audit is right-sizing your collection. In the context of, say, an 8-yard dumpster behind a building, maybe it's currently being collected 3 days a week. You don't really know if it should be collected 3 days a week unless you're measuring at least once in a while Is that dumpster, only 10% full every time it gets dumped? Or is it overflowing every time it gets dumped? Or do we have that just right? So these are all things that can help improve either the efficiency or the quality of your recycling program. All of that's well and good, but how has all this been impacted by COVID-19? And the short answer is tremendously. The number one thing I've heard from the partners I work with is just disruption to operations. You may be at full staff one day, and then the next day come in and find out that one staff person tested positive for COVID-19. And so maybe you have 20% of your employees have to quarantine for the next 14 days. And all of a sudden you're down significantly for an extended period of time. So folks are seeing their collection operation significantly impacted by the COVID-19 disease, and we're having to do a lot of thinking on our feet to maneuver around all of these changes. Another thing that we're seeing a lot of is changes to the waste streams. The disease has significantly impacted what people are purchasing and how they're purchasing them. Honestly, just about all of us have seen our lives shift much more to be in the home space. Things that we may have done at work or consumed at work, that's now all taking place at home. Folks are also doing a lot more online shopping, having things shipped to them to reduce points of contact in their lives. So in waste streams, we can see things like an increase in the amount of small cardboard coming from a place where people live. They're getting everything from Amazon now instead of the grocery store. And then conversely, you might have locations like dining halls that are seeing, significantly less traffic than they used to, and therefore are generating significantly less waste. And again, just to reiterate, the risk of transmission is changing the way people are structuring their operations. I know a lot of folks that maintain collections operations, they're no longer having their drivers come inside the building and congregate the way they used to. It certainly changes people's day-to-day operations, but it also makes it more difficult to do things like have meetings and plan how to do special projects like an audit. It used to be you could get a dozen people in a room and kind of put your heads together and come up with an action plan. And now that kind of planning is out the window, or at least you have to make significant changes to figure out how you're going to organize something like that. So where Rubicon comes into the picture is using technology tools to address the challenges that you face just in regular operations and achieving all the benefits of the audit that we talked about previously. But then also we found that a technology tool can be a great solution to a lot of the specific challenges posed by COVID-19. So just some of the benefits of using technology, ease of use is high on the list for folks that already work with technology on a day-to-day basis. If you frequently interact with a computer and a smartphone or a tablet, it can feel very intuitive to just use an app to do, just about any job. I find myself frequently asking, why isn't there an app for X, Y, or Z? So it can be easy to adopt for folks that are already familiar with it. An audit product, technology product is scalable. If you were doing a pen and paper audit, going around looking in dumpsters and recording what you saw there, it might be manageable to record that data from one person. But if you have 10 people all doing it together, it can be really difficult to track that in that pen and paper kind of way, whereas a technology tool will automatically aggregate that data and process it and put it into a more usable format for you. Our technology tools are GPS based, so they track your movement and your location as you move through your campus to do an audit. This gives you a layer of transparency and accuracy in what you're reporting. And as I mentioned before, the tracking and reporting are built into the technology tool. You're not having to add extra steps to put all of this data together and put it into something like an Excel spreadsheet or meaningful graphs or analysis. And then specifically in the COVID-19 context, the technology tool introduces a layer of separation and protection where everything you're doing is able to be mediated through the device instead of actually having to handle waste materials that folks may be concerned about contamination or transmission of disease. You can just take a picture with a smartphone. And then likewise, instead of having to do an assessment of your waste stream and then take that information back to someone else, that information is flowing directly to the cloud where someone else is able to access it in real time. And one thing that we've seen, particularly here with COVID, is that there are certain folks that are able to do their entire job function from home, and they can rely on folks in the field to utilize some of these technology tools and then do all the relevant, processing and acting on the data from the comfort of their home. So a little bit of the work that we've done with NWF and the Recyclemania project, we had a great idea to start this partnership between NWF and Rubicon for spring of 2020. We were going to pilot our audit technology with 5 schools, 5 campuses. We're all going to try this out for spring of 2020. Obviously, COVID was massively disruptive to that. Fortunately, we were all able to pivot. We were able to utilize some of this flexibility that we've talked about with these technology tools, and we've extended that pilot. And we're now working with campuses to implement this technology, see how it works for them, and see how we might be able to leverage it in the context of NWF and their great work with Recyclemania and beyond. So I want to talk a little bit about what the Rubicon software platform actually looks like. We've got 2 pieces to it that we're going to cover. The first is our iOS app that we can run on a Apple smartphone or tablet. And then the second part will be the web portal where you would go to access the data that's been gathered through that app. So you can see over on the left-hand side, this is what the basic interface would look like for a user of the app. You can see kind of a map screen showing your GPS location. You can see the bubbles on the map, the pins. These are numbered 3 and 4, showing the location of a waste or recycling receptacle. You also see a list of all the stops down at the bottom, telling you all the locations that may need to be audited on a given day. Once you arrive at a location, you can pull up the screen on the right, which is the customer information screen. This will tell you the service you're looking for, in this case, an 8-yard dumpster. Give you the location there. So this is University of North Carolina at Greensboro, one of their on-campus buildings I used as kind of a guinea pig location. And from this screen, you're able to access the screen on the left, which we call the exception screen. This is where you would go to report what it is that you see at that location through the app. So depending on the context, you may need to report that the container was not out. Maybe it was not put out for collection. You can select that it had clean recycling. We've selected a number of options that you can see below that for reporting both contaminants that may be present in that recycling stream. And then also we have fill level options there. So you may look inside a dumpster and see that it's, around a quarter full. So you're going to report it as such. You may have also noticed plastic bags as a specific contaminant that you want to report. So you can record all that information. And as you report that, you can also take a photo from the app. And all of that information then flows in real time. Flows in real time into the cloud, where it's then accessible from our web portal. This is a screenshot of what the Rubicon web portal looks like. We call this screen our dashboard map, which in the context of one of our smart city partners might be populated with 50 or more waste collection vehicles. In the context of an audit, it may be a little more sparse like this, where you just see a single auditor. But from this dashboard screen, you would be able to track a breadcrumb trail showing their progress through their route. You can also see some of that information that we talked about, the status of the different containers on their route. This is what a potential route may look like from within the portal, where you would go to plan the work that your auditor would be doing. You can see you've got all the different service locations around the school. And from that list down at the bottom, a little bit of information about each of those services. So for instance, I can see the Bryan building has both a dumpster service and a cart-based service. As you would be setting up these services in the portal, we've got a really large array of options that should be able to capture all of the different ways that waste materials are collected on your campus. I think one of the most exciting things about working with schools is it's just so widely varied. All the different things that you might run across on a campus, different waste streams that are collected, different receptacle types. In a municipal context, you may only be dealing with residential 96-gallon carts, whereas a campus might have carts and dumpsters, roll-offs, all different size containers, a combination of those receptacles, also public space containers, waste streams that cities can only dream about collecting, food waste, electronics, all of those great things. And we are able to set up all of those different varied services within our portal and assign them all to an audit route for someone to be able to inspect all those different container types. After these services have been set up and added to a portal, added to a route, then an auditor would be able to log into that route, walk around the campus, inspect these different containers, and record what it is that they see there. So this is an example of accessing the information that an auditor entered into the technology platform via the app. So in this case, the auditor is looking into a recycling dumpster. They're able to see, this is barely full, but I do see a pizza box in there, so I'm going to report it as a pizza box exception. You can see they're then able to take the photo of it, which flows directly into the portal. It's also marked with the customer name, the address, and a date and time stamp. So all of that information is recorded automatically, and it's accessible in the long term and from anywhere where you have a web browser. All of that information, like I said, also automatically is used to populate different what we call insights. So these are graphs and visualizations to represent some of the data that you're seeing, whether that's a participation rate, exception rate, so the percentage of containers inspected that have an issue that's being reported. We can also break down things like a pie chart of your different contaminants. So this is a great way, as I mentioned before, to craft a new education and outreach campaign. Looking at this one in particular, you can see how high up plastic bags are as a contaminant. So you may want to craft specifically a no plastic bags messaging campaign to address, one of your most significant contaminants. And not only does that help you know that you're being effective in your education and outreach, Should you also feel like you need to justify your work or your expenditures to someone higher up in the organization that's maybe less engaged with this day-to-day operation stuff, you have hard evidence to back you up. You can say, I know that, 27% of what we're encountering is plastic bags, and I can show you photos of it all around campus. So it's a great way to not just work based on hunches or guesses, but really to be data-based in the work that you do. And beyond that, it's really worth noting that all of this can significantly reduce contact between people if that's what's needed on your campus. That one person can be out by themselves in the field doing this work without ever actually touching anything more than the mobile device in their hands. And then that information can flow directly to someone working either in an office, socially distanced, or potentially even working from home without ever having to risk that point of contact between those individuals. Another point with this data flowing into our portal, it can then be exported into formats like Microsoft Excel. I personally love working in Excel. It's great to get this information and then be able to play with it, run different pivot table scenarios, stuff like that. So that's all I have about our technology platform and auditing in the time of COVID, which admittedly we're all still working together to try and figure out. But I'd love to hear from you all what questions you have.
Alex, thank you so much for that presentation. Yeah, folks, if you have questions, please go ahead and enter those into the chat box or the Q&A box. I actually do have a couple questions. And this is kind of a big question and might not even be easy to answer, but it is, what do you see as maybe the biggest challenge or maybe the biggest opportunity once post-COVID? I mean, a couple months after COVID, once things are back to normal, whatever that might look like. For example, what do you think as a campus sustainability director, what do you think is going to be the biggest opportunity or challenge on campus once students and staff are back and operations are back to normal?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, to some extent, we're all just guessing here. And, I'll say, first of all, I can't wait to see us get back to normal. But one thing that I think I've seen a shift in the conversation is a shift towards more thinking about not just sustainability, but also resiliency. I think there's kind of a recognition that COVID is happening, COVID is terrible, but once we get past it, there's nothing promising that something like it can't happen again. And so organizations are realizing that they need to build into their systems the resiliency to be able to manage another disruption, potentially at the level of COVID or maybe even more significant in the future. And just being able to do that planning in advance, being able to know that you have a plan B ready to go and that you can continue to be effective in your roles and get your job done is a really great thing.
Thank you. I know and we'll ask you that question again in 6 months, maybe. Or maybe less. Let's see. So a couple of the questions coming in are, so this one's specific to the app. It says, does the app still rely on the user to visually assess what they are seeing, what is in the picture?
Yeah, that's right. At this time, the auditor, the person actually utilizing the app, would take the photograph, but they would also be using that customizable exceptions menu to make a note of what it is they're seeing. in that receptacle. You know, we are a technology company. We're always keeping an eye towards the future. And I would love to be able to see things like using machine learning to be able to identify contaminants directly from that photograph. That's a tall order though. And luckily human beings are great at doing that. And so we're, at least at this time, just working to give folks the tools to do that easily and conveniently from within the app.
So I think kind of a follow-up or a connected question is also, is the app able to be used for estimating contamination rates without sorting through weighing the waste? It seems like this is able to identify what type of contamination there is, but not necessarily quantify how much.
At this time, I would say that's an accurate statement that for a given, you know, in the example we showed where you're reporting pizza boxes, you're saying, yes, there's a pizza box, you're taking a photograph of it, but you're not necessarily noting if pizza boxes are 1% of the contents of the dumpster or 99% of the contents of the dumpster. So that's correct for the app in its current form. Luckily, again, another benefit of being a technology company is that we're constantly developing the technology and releasing those updates. And part of that software as a service model is you're not just buying the software in its current form, you're always getting the most up-to-date version of it. And one thing that's been really exciting about this partnership between Rubicon and NWF is we're really taking our audit product and applying it to a brand new context, which is, you know, your campuses. And so this is why we really view it as a partnership between us and NWF, is we're looking for this kind of feedback to guide our future development of the technology product. So I would say, you know, I can't point to anything specific saying you'll be able to do that with our product in 3 months, but I will say getting that kind of insight and feedback into how you might potentially want to use the technology is exactly how we build and grow our product.
And Alex, the other two questions, I think you've talked a little bit, and that was kind of one of the main reasons for the campus pilot that we're working on, that we're supporting right now. The question is how much for the Rubicon services, and this question I can assume it's about, you know, for use on a college or university campus, or maybe the person is asking about, you know, another location. So question is how much for the Rubicon services? And then also the second question from another participant is how to register to sign into Rubicon.
Yeah, those are great questions. Part of what we're highlighting here is the pilot project that we're doing with NWF, which at this point has been a free pilot. And Christy, forgive me, I have trouble counting to 5 sometimes. I think we currently have all 5 of our pilot schools enrolled.
Yep.
But obviously, as 2020 comes to a close, a big part of our conversation now is what is this going to look like in 2020? And we're assessing, you know, how things are going with our pilot schools now, but we would also love to assess what the interest is from schools beyond just the 5 that we have currently participating. So we'd love for you to reach out to us, let us know that you might be interested. That will help shape this partnership moving forward into the future. I'd say also, you know, as I think we kind of mentioned, the college and university context is a new one for Rubicon. It's one we're really excited to get into, but it's also one that doesn't exactly match up with our current pricing models for what we might charge, say, a city for utilization of our services, just because cities look very different than colleges and universities. But I don't have an easy or straightforward answer to give you to the pricing question, but I would love to have a conversation with any school that's interested in the technology.
Yeah, so for colleges, and I'll be sure to share this via email, but for any campuses that are listening participating in today's webinar. If you are interested in learning more about opportunities for colleges and universities to get involved with the technology, please let me know. And like I said, we're moving into 2021, and so there might be other opportunities, so I'll keep you posted. But just, yeah, let us know and we'll make sure that we get you connected and you can chat with Alex. All
Right. And I would even say too, I know that cost can be an important consideration. And if you reach out and say to me, you know, I'm really interested in using this product, I'm not sure we have money in our budget to pay for it, that doesn't necessarily mean we wouldn't be able to find some way to work together in some type of context. And one thing that I really love about my job is usually at the end of some type of pilot or test program, we're able to find return on investment that justifies where the technology has been able to save money for an organization. And sometimes that helps people find a way to pay for a longer term commitment to it.
Are there, before we close, are there any other questions that folks want to submit to either the chat box or the Q&A box? I'll give it a couple more seconds to see. All right. So I appreciate, Alex, thank you so much for your time today and the presentation. I really appreciate it. And for everybody that has joined today, thank you for joining. I will, as I said, the webinar was recorded and I will get that posted online on the Campus Race to Zero Waste website by tomorrow or early next week. So before the Thanksgiving holiday. And once that's posted, I will send out an email to let you know. And our next webinar, I will share that information as well through an email, is on December 3rd. And that will focus on tracking and reporting for the upcoming 2021 competition, and also talk about some of the flexibility that we will be keeping in mind for the 2021 competition, just adjusting the program to ensure that colleges and universities can participate even if they are not fully operational and have safety and obviously safety and health concerns. So we will also be highlighting that because we really want to make sure that colleges and universities can engage with the program in the spring in some format. And so that could be similar to the traditional competition, or we're also going to be helping schools launch online campaigns if your students and staff are not on campus yet. All right. Well, again, thank you, Alex, for today's presentation, and everybody for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.